Good morning. This is Notes from Underground. Again, I'd like to thank whoever had sent me in this photo. This is definitely in the spirit of the types of photos we look to deconstruct on this show or video log. And I think it is, it's easy to just kind of look at the surface of a photo like this and just say, oh, there's a band on a roof and people are dancing to the band. But if you start looking deeper, I think we find more social cues of what's happening. I mean, let's start thinking about the time and place. It looks like it's a summer night. It looks like this is the 1940s, and just like in any time, people like music. Clearly, the woman in the middle likes music. She was probably the driving force to make sure that there was a band at her party. That's where I'm going. I'm going out and saying my assertion is this is a party. It's a party of two. It's a party of the woman in the center and the man on the left. One of them scheduled to have a band there. And this is what you had to do when you didn't have the advancements in modern electronics the way we have today. We take it for granted. You bring up a record player or a radio and you have a spontaneous moment on the roof. If you wanted that kind of spontaneity back then with music, impromptu music, especially with the band that's put together here. I mean, this is about 10 people, this band. You would have to do some planning. And let's look at this band. There's clearly this is the 1940s. Looks like swing. That's where you had a huge brass section, and there's about 8 people playing a brass instrument. I mean, I'm not really going to. There is a clarinet. I don't really know if that's considered brass. It's definitely wind. It's a wind instrument, and then there's 2 kind of string instruments. There's a gentleman right above the woman who's playing a guitar, and there's another gentleman who is playing the fiddle. So that's the makeup of the band. I think first thing I'd like to start with is if you really look at the band, there's a couple of interesting things here. I mean, sometimes when people pose for a photo, no one is really, they're not really playing the instrument. They all kind of feign that they're playing the instrument. And when I look here, I mean, I believe that they're playing the instrument, especially when you look at the fiddler, who's playing just to the left of the woman dancing. I mean, there is an intensity there too in his playing. I think there's an over intensity, an over exuberance in the way in which he's participating here. But it's very interesting because we're supposed to be creating kind of a moment here between this woman and her, obviously maybe her husband. Maybe they're celebrating an anniversary. She wanted to have music on the roof, and he made sure it happened. He looks fairly well to do. He was able to afford such an ensemble of musicians. But this, you think of back then without the, having to actually bring the band into the party moment. I mean, that's nice in a club, but in a more intimate moment, you can see how awkward it is. I mean, they were really outnumbered in this case. And, when you look at a party, it's really the center. It's hard to keep that balance of the center of the party. Let's say the anniversary topic, this man and this woman, and then there's 10 band members who seem to be, I guess, ogling at the woman in the center, which I think, I mean, there's a level of libidinal energy generated from the band members that is, I wouldn't feel comfortable. The guy on the left and he clearly, he is definitely pointing at the girl, like, you're my girl, and she's pointing at him saying, you're my guy. But if you look at the band, very confusing here. I mean, this guy on the left, and he must have a very strong, his presence to counterbalance the level of libidinal energy coming off of that band. And, you look at that band, there's a lot of there's a lot of foreheads there. There's a lot of cerebral cortexes, um, expressing this libidinal energy. And I think it's very appropriate. I would have probably back then um, made sure there was a lot of wind instruments, because instead of like catcalling or things that men generally do, and especially with those expressions on their faces. It's nice that it's being filtered through the instrument. It's coming out as notes and kind of has a pre-linguistic kind of feel, and it's under control. I am still a little alarmed at the fiddler. Again, he's not muffled. He's not filtered, and you can see there's a level of he's crossed the line of exuberance. He's in the over exuberant, and it's kind of a little bit scary because he's very close to that ledge. I'm sure if he pulls back and tries to kind of break himself from the level of intense libidinal energy that he's giving off, he's in danger of falling off the back of the building. And then there would be, probably it take a while for the band to realize, like, wasn't the fiddler supposed to come in at that point? And they would realize that he had fallen. But they should, someone should brace. Now, there's been one gentleman who I've not really talked about, and that's the gentleman. There's another gentleman behind the woman. There's a trombone player and the guitar player, but the one in the middle, you see him, he's there. He has his arm around the guitar player, and what I'm trying to, I guess, what I want to point out here is that there's a dynamic of three people at this party. The gentleman in the back, I have not counted him among the musicians, because again, not playing an instrument. Again, has his hand on the gentleman there. I believe he's kind of a rival for the woman, the protagonist here. Or maybe the gentleman to the left is the protagonist. Maybe they're both, maybe he's the antagonist. Maybe he's hanging around. He's clearly at the party. He's there to make a point. I think his point is he's saying, I'm an affable guy. He's probably even hired the photographer to come here. And I think it's probably, he's saying, I'm affable, I can hang out with the band. He's trying to show a dimension of himself that may not be obvious to the woman who there's kind of an unrequited love there. And he's hoping that she will see the photo and say, yeah, he seems pretty affable guy,